right, there's a new Doom game, and we can't call it that because they used that name already 23 years ago. I want to call it Dooforum just to be obnoxious and to remind you that the fourth was a real thing. Doom Bethesda isn't really accurate either because it's not a Bethesda game. They just stuck their name all over it to curry favor with the old school crowd. Redoom might be the best name for it. Doom 3 and Redoom are both basically Doom reboots, but id took a completely different approach with each game. Doom 3 put all of its eggs in the story basket, while Redoom kicks the story right in the basket. Boom! Suck it down! And then proceeds to pick up all the pieces of egg while weeping and apologizing. Redoom takes a very schizophrenic approach by presenting a character who doesn't give a fuck about the story to appeal to people who don't want a story, but at the same time peppering the game liberally with a bunch of story. At the start of the game, UAC Chairman Samuel Hayden tries to introduce the story to the Doom Marine, who throws the monitor away. Fuck yeah, this is Doom, man, we don't need no friggin' story. And a few minutes later, you're in an unskippable cutscene while the story happens. The new Doom game starts with a big middle finger towards Doom 3 and the whole concept of a story in a Doom game, and then says, no, but seriously, here's the story. Doom 3 was very story-driven, with a long, Half-Life-style cold open, and the story was driven by picking up PDAs with emails to read, System Shock audio logs to listen to, and videos to watch. There were also terminals you could interact with in a surprisingly in-depth and very immersive way. Doom 3 had the story of Half-Life with the storytelling of System Shock and the gameplay of the unmodified Unity engine. Redoom still has the story of Half-Life with the storytelling of Half-Life 2 and the gameplay of Far Cry 3, I guess. Doom 3 was technically impressive because obviously John Carmack isn't even going to show up to work unless he gets to revolutionize the gaming industry. Doom 3's exceptional graphics and lighting are the main selling point. It's more of a benchmarking game in the vein of Crysis or Far Cry than anything else. The shooting mechanics of the game, however, were so uninspired it was almost embarrassing. The movement and gunplay mechanics and enemy behaviors were straight out of Doom 1, including monsters popping out of tiny spawn closets every time you entered a new area. That wouldn't be such an issue, except every aspect of the game's environment and storytelling tries to convey a sense of realism and authenticity to the Mars labs. And then poof, a door that looks like a wall pops open and there's a zombie in there who was just waiting around guarding the small apology pile of ammo and armor to make up for the ambush. The weapons didn't even have secondary modes, and the ability that gave you the edge over the monsters was called Strafe. Redoom's story is pretty good, and a lot more in-depth than the fans of the game are letting on. I see a lot of people saying, it's Doom, there is no story, which is frankly untrue. Yes, the focus is absolutely on the gameplay, and there's nothing wrong with that, but Redoom has plenty of story crammed in. You've got unskippable first-person cutscenes like Half-Life 2, hologram ghost flashbacks like System Shock 2, and a shed load of codex entries to read like Mass Effect 2. Also Mass Effect 1. I'll get to the all-important gameplay in a minute, but I do want to dissect the story a bit more. The new Doom is definitely a reboot. There are significant changes to the backstory that pretty much preclude any connections to the previous Doom games. This time around, the UAC is a clearly religious organization full of Satanists, which is an awesome fusion of science and magic. Another change is that the Doom Marine is no longer a Marine. This new Doom guy is some kind of eternal champion who has fought against hell throughout history. Ironically, this is where the new Doom game starts looking a lot like the old Marathon games. There are plenty of parallels. The Doomslayer and the security officer from Marathon are both implied to be the hero of 1,000 faces, who is always present throughout history to fight against evil and chaos. Both games also have a friendly AI who helps you out and who asks you to deactivate them. The biggest similarity is the attitude of the player character. The Doom guy and the Marathon security officer are both portrayed as being more interested in killing bad guys and breaking shit, and the true driving forces of the story are the background characters. The three characters in Doom match up pretty well with the three AIs from Marathon. I mean, Jesus, when the Doom guy deactivates Vega, he even downloads a copy of him first. That's fucking Marathon right there. Where it sort of loses momentum is in the disconnect between the backstory and the actual story. I could swear there was initially some connection between Redoom and the previous games that got dummied out before release.
The demons prophesied his return. If he awakes, it could jeopardize the entire mission. For he is the only one who can stand against them.
Was the Doom guy meant to be a protagonist from a previous game, trapped in hell after his prior exploits? That has to have been the original draft of the character, because it's weird that the Doom Marine isn't a Marine, but he still has Marine power armor. Only now it's Holy Retcon armor, and he's a member of an ancient order of doom-slaying knights that has no history with the UAC or Mars. At all. I don't know, I get the feeling that the story changed in development and the two disparate halves were joined clumsily with Loctite. It's still an enjoyable experience, though. The visual design is beautiful wall-to-wall, and the graphics are simultaneously dark and colorful. Redoom is moody and grim, but far from monochrome. The path through each level is also clearly lit with green pylons, just in case you're too stupid to play a video game. I also enjoy the soundtrack, which is a fusion of metal and ultra-bass dubstep wubs. Real metal fans might not think it counts, but it sounds metal enough to pass a casual inspection. I'm not a metalhead by any stretch of the imagination. The closest I get is watching Razor Fist videos. For me, talking about metal is like being Jane Goodall among the chimps, where apparently the alpha male is the one wearing the most fake bullets. I have a speed loader in my pocket. Talk about the gameplay, idiot! I hear you yell at your monitor. Well, since you asked so nicely. Redoom combines Serious Sam arena combat with Far Cry 3's QuickTime finishers and RPG light level up system. That sounds way worse than it is, trust me. While on principle I don't like that a solid 40% of the game is cinematic QuickTime one-button kills, the gameplay is fast and fun and the weapons are awesome. Except for the shit-ass plasma rifle. Jesus, that thing has less impact than TNA after their latest cancellation. Oh, that's good satire. The visual design of the weapons does nothing for me. They're all extremely bulky and puffed up like they came from Titanfall or Unreal Tournament or something. Doom 3's weapons were much more interesting looking. They all handled like pump-action paintball guns, but they looked good. I would also be lying if I said I didn't find Redoom occasionally repetitive, and by occasionally I mean for the last 30 seconds of every minute. id was so afraid of making Redoom into another corridor shooter that they way overcorrected. The combat arenas are tiny and laid out almost exactly like 2v2 old-school multiplayer maps. It's really efficient approach to level design, make one tiny arena and then make me kill 100 waves of bad guys. Id gets a lot of bang for my buck, if you know what I'm saying. At the end of a long session, it can start to feel like the game isn't progressing at all, and watching the same quick time kills over and 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 over again makes me feel like I'm in hell even when I'm not. And because the level design is essentially a bunch of enclosed arenas connected by short hallways, you're not killing enemies to progress, you're just killing enemies to kill time in the arena. Your mileage may vary, but I hate that. The killing is fun, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Please don't take that line out of context, it makes me sound crazy. Thankfully, the difficulty curve is set very well, and Redoom is challenging enough to be fun without impeding the flow of the game. Otherwise, there's not much else to say. Redoom does nothing to innovate, it's just your standard issue great game. Ultimately, I have to give the gameplay nod to Doom 3, because the original Super Turbo Turkey Puncher 3 is much more fluid and playable. Redoom's reimagining of Turkey Puncher is unfortunately a hollow retread of the original and just can't recapture the former's majesty. I'm kidding, of course. Doom 3 is interesting from a technical standpoint, but it's a curiosity of its time. Redoom is way more fun and wrapped in a colorful, gloomy, atmospheric package. Doom 3 was stylized as Doom Cubed, which seems incredibly stupid unless you've actually played the game, in which case it is fucking brilliant.